Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today our topic is Pope Benedict XVI to resign. If you'd like to join the conversation, please feel free to call in at 347-324-3460, or you can post your question in the chat room, or you can email us at info@thecorebusinessshow.com. Today I have the pleasure of having Dr. Neil Nielsen, Jr. He is the professor of philosophy and religious studies at Rice University in Houston, Texas. We want to welcome you to the program. Dr. Nielsen, thank you for coming on.
Good to be with you.
I guess to begin with, if you can kind of tell our listening audience about how the Pope came to be in that particular, position as a universal church, what started from the very beginning, why we need a Pope and why we have one, and really what's the role of the Pope?
Well, certainly he's an important religious figure, not only in Christendom, but for the whole of the religious world. The Roman Catholic tradition is that he is a successor of St. Peter. We know that Rome became one of the centers of Christian life and tradition through the centuries. And as chaos set in the Roman Empire, the Pope was a person Rome gave leadership. We have, beginning about in the High Middle Ages, the time of Thomas Aquinas, Rome is tied in with the state and with the culture. But the Pope is doing not just religious things, he's helping protect Rome from the barbarians, and he's also a spokesman for Christian doctrine. The competitor, of course, is the Bishop of Constantinople. That's what we call Eastern Orthodox Christianity. The popes were in the West, but as the church has become separated from the state, the Pope's leadership has been more important in our era.
Wow. So when you go back in time, you mentioned there's a Western church and the Eastern church, and with the Western church, he took you mentioned something about Peter.
Yeah, well, the Roman Catholic tradition is that the Pope is a successor of Peter. There are good Roman Catholic historians working on this, and I think you have to say the office of the Bishop of Rome took on great importance in the early period as the Roman Empire was declining, as the barbarians were at the gate of Rome. The Pope was the protector who negotiated peace. The papacy has a long and diverse history through the Middle Ages and into the present. And the office certainly has grown and taken on other dimensions. The split between Protestants and Roman Catholics, of course, in the West, came with the Reformation and with Martin Luther, and subsequently wars of religion. But Rome is a place where probably Peter and Paul both died, and it was an important place when Christianity was persecuted in the early period, and subsequently as a bearer of culture through centuries.
Wow. With this particular, can I tell us about the position itself and how the person rises to become Pope or the Bishop of Rome? I know it's the election process that happens, but kind of tell us how that plays out. And for example, he is resigning. Why can a Pope resign? Is that something that they have the option to do, or they just die in the position? Kind of, if you don't mind, can I explain this?
Well, this is very unusual. I think a Pope is taking what his admirers would say would be a wise and creative step, leaving way for a younger man and leaving way for some changes in the Church. The doctrine of papal infallibility was proclaimed only as late as 1870 with the First Vatican Council. Second Vatican Council in the 60s was a reforming council, and it's an office that had its ups and downs. The last Pope to resign was in 1415. That was before America was discovered, and that was in controversy about the Avignon popes and the popes in Rome. And the Pope resigned to let that controversy die down and have only a single Pope. I think just judged historically, we have to say that, papacy has had its ups and downs, but it's at present, a distinguished and leading office in Christendom.
The canon law, which governs the Church, talks about the process of who becomes Pope and in his particular office. And the College of Cardinals or College of Bishops pretty much actually help elect.
They elect the Pope in a secret conclave, yeah.
In that particular process, right now we're having a clear front runner. In this short period of time, kind of tell us how that process is played. It's going to be one of the 120 cardinals that's gathered there, even though it can be anyone, but there's always going to be said and done, not really politics. There's going to be one among one of the 120 cardinals that convene for that conclave.
Yeah, well, they have 20 days, normally after the death of the Pope, to convene and make their choice. And there are all kinds of rumors as to whom we're going to have. This is a group of men with independence and power. They'll be in the Sistine Chapel. They'll cast successive ballots. They'll take an oath that they will, with their best judgment and with objectivity, produce a new Pope. And then we'll see the smoke out of the window inside St. Peter's. But it's a very powerful office. Protestants and Eastern Orthodox may respect it, but they don't owe allegiance to it. But the Pope is one of the leading figures in our world, not only for Christians, but for all kinds of people. And what he says and does goes far beyond the borders of his billion followers in his own church.
With that process of the cardinals who gather, and I know it's by secret ballot, how within the minds, they know it's going to be among one of them. Do you know why it's a secret ballot? Because it's just it's really impartial. You might say someone, hey, I might support you, but allow the Spirit to kind of help guide the majority, and then they end up with a person? Yeah,
sure. There is protection. The Roman Catholic Church has the greatest monarchy still lasting, and this we can say to its credit. It's not a democracy, and there are different groups. They know each other, and I think the cardinals will seek to do the best man for their church. When observers come on this, they speak of a guardian party to which the present Pope belonged. He was, at the time of the Second Vatican Council, a reformer, a liberal. He has been a very conservative church, as concerned to have faithful members as to have a large and expanding church. He was head of the Holy Office, but there's a liberal reforming party, and then there's a middle group in between. But I think it's a process that protects the church. Other forms of church government, of course, would be more democratic, but the Roman Catholic Church gains great strength and power from its hierarchy.
Okay. And the difference between the Pope resignation and a Pope death, take us the process, if you don't mind, between the two.
What's the question?
The question is, when he resigns, is there a different process, or is it really the same process if he resigns or a death of a Pope?
Yeah, basically the same. What this man has protected us from, I don't mean this in any negative way, but if you have a Pope, and he's one of the older popes in old age, spends 5 or 10 years dying, I don't mean that in any irreverent way, then that doesn't give his church the vitality that a younger man. Pope John the 23rd in the Second Vatican Council was a very dramatic moment. He brought in the Protestants, the Orthodox, he endorsed religious freedom. You know, it put the church right in the hands of leadership. When an old man can't carry on well, and this present Pope has had difficulty, according to his critics, in maintaining discipline even at Rome. The New York Times is full of it this morning. Then that lacks vitality. And I think the Pope is doing a wise and generous thing, giving his church a chance to do that, fresh blood. But then so much depends on the wisdom of the electors, and no one knows but God and what a Pope will do when he gets there. He's a person of great power, more power than the President of the United States, because he's not up for re-election.
So when does Pope vacates that chair?
End of the month. End of the month.
And
then by Easter, we hope to have a new Pope.
When he vacates, of course, there's no two popes. He's just going to be more a
senior,
just an advisor. Will they still call him Pope, or they will call him by his cardinal name?
I don't think that's going to be hard to say. Everybody will call him a Pope Emeritus, but he won't be participating in voting for his successor. He certainly has appointed the majority of the people that are voting on him. So his integralist, his conservative tradition. I am a Protestant. I don't mean this in any negative way. I'm pro-Catholic. But there is a plate full of problems for the new Pope to solve. Internationally, the Roman Catholic Church is being persecuted in China. They don't like the tie with Rome. The question is whether a new Pope can help that any. There are relations with the Muslim world, places like Egypt where the Christians are, I don't know, at most 20%, maybe half of that. A world even 50 years ago or 100 years ago was separated. They had to put 15 days to make sure that everybody got to Rome in time for the election. Now we come by airplane. Now we can do the kind of thing that you and I are doing, talking over distance. My daughter lives in Vienna in Austria. I can dial a number. I can put on Skype and I can be in the next room. The popes live in this fast-changing kind of world. This is a plus for religious organizations, especially those that are interconnected like the Roman Church. On the other hand, it makes for a secular world. The Pope is confronted with Pentecostalism. This is not meant in any political or critical kind of way, but Pentecostalism is a very competing kind of movement in Latin America and Africa. And the question is, what relation do the popes want with that? The Second Vatican Council put dialogue between Protestants, Catholics, and Orthodox. And John 23rd had lived in a Orthodox culture and was very open to Eastern Orthodoxy. What relation does the Pope envisage with fellow Christians, with Muslims? Again, not to be too critical, the present Pope made what I'm sure he would regard as a slip of the tongue, and you can say the Muslims were oversensitive. There's a long controversy in the Middle Ages up to the present culture clash between Muslims and Christians. In my community where I live, we're quite dialogue a great deal, have mutual friends. We all know that's not the case around the world, that there is tension between Muslims and Christians. The Pope has a whole plate full of controversies here, both inside his church and outside his church. That's in our world normal. If a church has vitality, then it has different varieties within it, and he'll have pressure on him. Again, I don't mean this in a polemical or negative way, but the whole feminist question, family questions, Pope has to make decisions on that. And the marvelous thing about the papacy is all the Pope has to speak, and we can hear it in the next 10 minutes wherever we are all around the world. So it's a very different thing than the medieval papacy when the church was tied in so completely with the state. And we've had weak popes, and we've had strong popes, and some of us who are not Roman Catholics, I think, would welcome a strong pope, but in terms of proclaiming the Christian message, of bringing peace and understanding and dialogue. It's quite a job.
Yeah, it's quite a job. So do you think the new person that they will elect is going to have that stamina and that charisma?
It'll be a younger man, probably.
Yeah, in order to handle today's issues. In saying that, as we go through this particular process, and hopefully there is a pope named by Easter, what do you see as the future for the papacy?
Well, so much depends on the purpose, on the person of the new pope. He has, let's overstate it, more options than the President of the United States, because he's a longer time in office. It's a spiritual office. That is, the Roman Church is not primarily interested in political power. It is interested, I think, in freedom and opportunity to proclaim its message. And it has certain convictions about, here is America, United States. Until after the Civil War was overwhelmingly a Protestant country, what kinds of Protestantism there was. Catholic immigration came after the Civil War, and the group that were most influential in bringing Catholicism to America were the Irish, because they were anti-Protestant with their experience in Ireland, and at the same time spoke good English. Ireland, St. Patrick's Day, had a great movement, and if you look now, this country, I think the figure is 2/3 of the country of the Supreme Court are Roman Catholic. Does that matter? No, yes. I think they ought to have freedom, but I think they're sincere in their religion. The only Roman Catholic president we've had was Kennedy, and his personal morals were highly questionable, to say the least. So Catholicism is integrated into American society. I was at the opening of our new mosque in the community where I live. The Methodist bishop, who is a woman, and a Roman Catholic bishop, who is not, embraced each other and exchanged kisses. We're not fighting the wars of religion anymore. The wars of religion were a terrible thing. They destroyed much of Europe. This is a world, I think, in which we need religion, we need peace, we need goodwill, but religion, of course, can bring out lots of ill will and hatred, which I would say is contrary to the will of God.
In closing, do you think the future of the papacy is going to be in this election? Will that American cardinal will have a chance to actually to seat that particular position, or you think it's going to be another European?
Well, I think it's more likely. It's anybody's guess. Cardinal Dolan is talked about. He's in the New York Times. North American, hardly any chance. South American, a very good chance. Maybe an African pope, maybe a Canadian pope. But I'd say that's in the hands of God and in the cardinals. And it's a very crucial test, not just for, what it means immediately, but what it means in the long history of the church Pope has great leadership abilities. He can lead the world. He can lead the church. Or, there have been popes that were not very successful. We ought to pray to God for it. I say that as a Protestant, but it's an office of great importance and great power, and some of us would not consider ourselves under its control, but I think its message is something the world needs.
Okay. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I think this is a fascinating and exciting time, comparable to the Second Vatican Council, which in the 60s was very important. And if you consider how much religious persecution there is in the world, 100 countries at least where persecution is overt, I think we need to know how important cooperation is between Catholics, Protestants, and Orthodox. It's on the books. Rome is sponsoring it. And I think how much the positive, not the negative side of religion, but the positive side of religion is something that our world needs very much.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you so very much, Dr.
Well, enjoyed talking with you, and it's a fascinating time to wait and see.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
You bet. Right.
Take care. Bye-bye. Again, everybody, thank you for listening to the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. You can download this episode on iTunes or Blog Talk Radio. Everybody, have a great day, and take care.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For more information about equipment financing and asset-based loans, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. Or call us at 866-611-7457. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. And thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. And fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.
Blog Talk Radio.